For this recipe, you're going to need 4 cups of flour, sugar or honey, salt, yeast, instant yeast is best, olive oil or nonstick spray, 2 cups of water, some parchment paper, and any kind of pan that looks like this. All right, so I've measured out 512 grams or 4 cups of flour. I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of sugar. And now what comes is the salt, my favorite, 2 teaspoons of salt. All right, so now you're going to add in 2 teaspoons and a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. If you don't have a 1/4 teaspoon, you can just splash a little bit more in there. No big deal. And if you want instructions on how to use a sourdough starter, I can also email that to you. All right, so you're just going to use your spatula or whatever spoon to gently mix it. Make sure it's all kind of mixed up together. No big deal. Okay, now we're going to add in 2 cups of about 100 temp water. Don't mind that weird blob in the middle. That's just some leftover from my sourdough starter that I throw in with my bread all the time. To get 100-degree water, all you have to do is microwave the cup of water for about a minute. It shouldn't be too hot to touch, but it should definitely be warm if you touch it. All right, so as my daughter says, you're just gonna mixa. You want it to be a shaggy, damp little ball in the middle of the bowl. You know, don't over mix it, but the flour should be incorporated into it. And you really can't mess this stuff up, I promise you. If it seems like slightly dry, you could add a splash of water, but it should probably be fine as long as you're using AP flour. AP is all-purpose flour. All right, here's what we're looking for. Just a wet, shaggy little ball in the middle. Okay, what you're going to do is get a damp towel and cover up your little ball and leave it in a warm spot for 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Oh, look at all those bubbles. Look, it's risen, it's doubled in size, and we are ready to deflate. So just to check in again, we're going from here to here. All right, deflating is just like this. You go around the bowl in a couple turns. You're pulling the bottom to the top, kind of giving your little dough ball a little bit of shape. All this does is give the yeast another opportunity to rise. The best part about this bread is it can be baked several different ways, including in an 18 by 12 inch pan or a 15 by 10 inch. This is going to be more of a focaccia. If you're going into a 9-inch round, you're going to need to use butter to grease, not parchment paper or oil. You could also use 2 9 by 5 inch pans. This will be more like a loaf slicing bread, but you're also going to need butter to grease that pan. Hey, butter, what's up? All right, for today's purposes, I'm going to use one of the flatter, larger jelly roll pans. I'm going to put some parchment paper on it. Make sure it's nice and flattened out. Next step is to put some olive oil on there. I would say this is about like a 1/4 cup or a little bit more. It really just depends. I use olive oil, but you can use butter or nonstick spray on your parchment paper if you are making a flatter focaccia flatbread type of bread today with me. All right, here's that deflated dough that we had from earlier. All you do is just turn it out onto the parchment paper. Don't worry about it if it gets messy. That's just the nature of the dough. This is a really wet dough, but it's going to be fine, I promise you. Okay, so I've got my bread turned out. I'm going to put a little olive oil on top because it's time for its second rest. You're just going to let it sit on this parchment paper for about a 1/2 hour to an hour. And you know, you could use nonstick spray. You can cover it with plastic wrap. I use olive oil because we're in a quarantine and bread is delicious and olive oil is delicious. All right, this is a great time to preheat your oven because it'll give your bread a nice warm spot to rise. Okay, it's ready to be shaped a bit. All right, get some olive oil on your fingers and get ready to poke. All right, so I'm poking and I'm stretching. See how I'm using my poking and stretching motion. I am a professional. So yeah, just kind of pull the dough out to the edges of your pan. You want to touch the bottom of that pan when you're poking the holes through. This is going to give your bread like a really delicious crust on the bottom and on the top. But yeah, it's fun. It's good. You shouldn't be getting any dough in your hands because your hands should have plenty of olive oil on them. Well, it's almost ready for that 425-degree oven. I'm going to put some coarse salt on top, and you should be ready now to put it in your 425-degree oven for 15 minutes. You're going to bake at 425 for 15 minutes and then 375 for 20. There she is. You did it. Delicious.